Welcome back to another episode of the 4Q podcast. My name is Sheena Shui and I'm just so happy that you're here. I'm so happy to be part of your weekly rituals, right? We know that if you're a long-time listener, you'll know that I do talk about daily rituals, monthly, weekly, and they're really important for creating meaning in life and having something to ground you that whenever you need to come back from life, from stress, from grief, from identity loss, your rituals will be the things that you come back to because believe it or not, they are the things that make you who you are. So let's get into today's episode about the brain's purpose for anxiety, burnout, stress, depression, you name it. Like, this is talking about the brain's purpose for that, because I really want to talk about this topic because I think that in the ethos there is a bit of a idea that your brain isn't working effectively if you feel anxious or burnt out or depressed, or like your brain's not meant to have certain feelings or emotions, or your nervous system isn't meant to feel a certain way. And that's not the case. So the analogy that I've been loving using lately and that has really stuck out to me is, I want you to start thinking of it like this. You know when you're on the highway on one of those long trips and you have those bumpy things on the line strip on the side of the highway? They're there to let you know when you're veering off the road. So obviously on a long journey, we all get tired or we just lose concentration for a little bit. We get distracted, and those things are sort of give us a bit of a nudge and a bump and kind of wake us up a little bit and go, oh, okay, sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I better make sure I'm driving straight. I'm in alignment. I'm driving in the direction that I'm supposed to be going. That is the same thing for anxiety, depression, burnout. All of those things are meant to be there because our brain wouldn't be born with the capacity to have those things happen to us if it did not have a purpose. I want you to hold on to that you're not broken. There is not something wrong with you. And it's not something to be medicated away, numbed away. Often when we think about those negative emotions that come up, and I say negative loosely because all emotions have purpose, but let's just say the ones that aren't the ones that people always want to feel. They're all there for purpose. Anger has a purpose. A state of anxiety has a purpose. Nervousness, scared, fear, all of it has a purpose to keep us safe, to make sure that we're in alignment with who we are, that we're connecting with people, that we're doing what truly aligns for us. And so when we're starting to feel anxiety quite a lot and burnout, if you really think about, why would my brain have this purpose? Why would it be implanted with the ability to feel like this? My nervous system to feel like this? It is to let you know that you're veering off the path, that something is not aligned for you. And so if you're feeling like this lately or have had some feelings this year, instead of beating yourself up and going, there's something wrong with me, it's just my gut health, it's just this, that, and the rest of it. Look, don't get me wrong. I think those things absolutely play a part and can help in recovery. So, seeing a naturopath for your gut health and getting some calm chemicals in your body to help with your nervous system, like magnesium, vitamin C, vitamin B, they're very crucial for anxiety recovery, calming the nervous system. But ultimately, your nervous system is responding to your thoughts. Your feelings are responding to your thoughts, and unconscious thoughts as well. So unconscious memories, all of that, it's all responding to that. So your brain, whether you consciously remember something or not, it remembers the feelings. And so it's trying to let you know, hey, something's not right, whether it is your relationship, your workplace, your daily schedule. The fact that we all live in a capitalist society that gives us way too much stimulus. So stimulus in the form of too much news every day and too much, social media every day and engaging in lots of community events all the time. That can take a lot of wear and tear on your nervous system when you're overstimulated, right? Like, we've never meant to have this much news, this much interaction in terms of social media, right? Like, it's way too much dopamine stimulus. And eventually your brain just doesn't have the capacity to process all that information. So it's going to feel overwhelmed. So part of this is just the society that we live in, and I want you to remember that. But there are ways that you can pull yourself back into alignment when the world is pulling you into its ether. So, simple things like stepping back and not watching the news so much can be such a helpful thing. Having little social media breaks, even having a day a week where you just don't use any socials at all. Or again, there's a really simple practice that I like to tell people about, just to try it, is going somewhere and leaving your phone at home. So obviously, if there's something big going on, have it on you. But if you are going to a park with your kids and your husband's there, or you're going somewhere with your friends and your friends are there, do you really need your phone? Somebody else is there to take photos. Somebody else is there if there's an emergency and needs to call someone. So I just want you to try not having your phone and just see how much more present you are, or how anxious you are without that device. Like, how much is it a part of you? And I know often when I suggest this to some of my highly anxious clients, and particularly business owners, they feel like if they don't reply to a comment on Instagram within a certain amount of time, or, there's going to be excuses as to why not to try this. But I really want you to challenge yourself to try this, okay? So going somewhere without your phone. And again, when we're talking about misalignment, we said relationships, your workplace isn't working, the society stuff isn't working. But it also can be old stuff coming out that you have not addressed. So maybe there's some past trauma that's leaking out of you. So often what happens with an extreme example, so let's say soldiers who've gone to war, PTSD, things like that, post-traumatic stress disorder, it is not helpful to counsel them while they're in the zone. They need those survival mechanisms to survive. But when they come back from the zone, that's when they feel it. Yeah? And then it seeps out when they're safe. So once they're in a place where they're safe and they're back at home and they're back in their daily rituals, that's when things start to seep out. So they'll hear noises and automatically be taken back to that time, not recognizing it always. So loud noises might scare them. Certain smells that smell similar to gunpowder or other things, again, just instantly take them back to a traumatic place, and it seeps out of them through anxiety, anger, agitation, stress. And what that really looks like is yelling at their partner, yelling at their kids, not wanting to see people, withdrawing, not getting out on the weekends, just being home all the time. That's what it looks like. And I think people think that it's meant to look like some big, hectic, scary thing and somebody, really losing their mind and going wild. But all of these things look a lot more subtle than what you think they do. So that's what I want you to really recognize, is that if you have past trauma stuff that you've not dealt with, perhaps now that you're safe and you're living in a more safe place, maybe you do have a good relationship, or you're finally in a place where your brain goes, okay, we are now safe enough to process this, it's going to start leaking out. And a lot of people will sort of question me and go, Sheena, I don't know if I have trauma or not. I don't know if I have attachment issues or not. Trauma isn't the things that a lot of people think it is. So the typical thing that comes through in my therapeutic space is, oh, Sheena, like, I had a good childhood. My parents like sent me to good schools, food on the table, we had a nice house, etc. That does not mean that they did right by you, because I think it's important to remember that our parents might do the very best and think that they're doing the best that they can for us, but it doesn't mean that we come out of that unscathed. So if you never were told that you're amazing just for you, just for being you, so not because you look a certain way. So some parents were very appearance orientated, like they get a lot of pride from their daughter being the thinnest or the most beautiful or the best hair, or people complimenting them on their body, which is awful, because obviously that young person might learn, oh, my worth is attached to my beauty, my way that I look, that kind of thing. Oh, you should put her into modeling, all of that sort of stuff. But never really telling her that she's lovable just as she is, sitting on the couch watching Netflix or whatever. Like, that's the kind of thing that we want people to have. So again, if you felt like you couldn't go to your parents when big stuff happened, like bullying or friendship breakdowns or even a breakup, as kids and even as teenagers, our brains aren't fully developed. And so this is why we need the adults in our lives to help us navigate these times and really process what's going on for us and make sense of how to deal with these emotions. And so when we have to deal with those things alone, that can be really hard. And sometimes if we only get love for, again, looking a certain way or achievement, I only get love when I get straight A's or when I'm the perfect athlete or when I get awards. That then tells us I'm only lovable when I'm doing and achieving. And so if we look at the definition of trauma from Gabor Mate, he talks about, long story short, anything that leaves a mark long-term trauma. And so I think there's still this idea, again, that I have to confront for people, is that they think that trauma is severe domestic violence or sexual abuse or something like horrifically awful happening. And it's anything that's left long-term resonance for you. So again, another thing that might be trauma for one person and not for another is moving a lot, because moving a lot was really hard when you're trying to form your identity as a kid, as a teenager. And if you had to move a lot, we form identity in those years often through our relationships and feedback from peers. So if you're constantly moving and having to reset that every single time, reset friends, reset your identity, new school, new people, new place, it can cause a lot of identity crisis. It can cause an inability to feel ever really connected to people. But not everyone comes out of that experience like that. But often a lot of people do. And so you can see how trauma is actually quite subjective. And you might have things from your childhood that you didn't actually recognize impact you now. And then through the therapeutic process, you go, oh, wow, like, I realize now that my step-parent, my parent, probably did have some narcissistic traits. They always cared what people thought. They never really asked me how I was going. It was always about them and their drama and their emotions, and never really about mine. And sometimes you can't see that until someone points that out to you. And then once you see it, you can't unsee it. So again, these are ways that when you become an adult and you're in a healthy relationship and you're in a, really good job and all of that, your brain now goes, hey babe, it's safe. Now's the time. We've got to process this stuff that we never really processed, because I can see it playing out. You've got friends who feel very similar to that toxic parent. There's toxic behaviors from your childhood that are feeling similar in your relationship and you're not paying attention. And so that is what the manifestation of anxiety, burnout, relationship issues, depression, all of those things are that bumpy side thing on the highway going, hey, something's not aligned here. You got to get back on the vision. You got to get back on the right direction. And so I would really endeavor for you to think about, if you've been feeling that or it's coming and it's going, connect with someone and really figure out what is going on here. What is this about? So obviously, as a therapist, I recommend engaging with the therapist because there's certain skills needed to address these things in a very kind and gentle way. And I think sometimes people really worry that what it looks like is going back to traumatic events and completely reliving it. Like, no, that's way traumatic. That's not what processing trauma looks like. When we reprocess something, all we're doing is feeling a feeling. So maybe there was a sickly feeling in you, and how can we transform that feeling into something else? We're going to shift it. So we're literally shifting energy. We literally shift your body sometimes and move that energy that's stuck, that feeling that's stuck, and transform it into something else so that it no longer affects you. Or if it comes back, it will never be as intense as what it was. So, but that takes skill and training. And often, unfortunately, I see a lot of, life coaches and other coaches of kinds, with well intentions to work through some of this, but in doing it in such severe and traumatizing ways, like reliving the fine details of this event. And that's not cool. Like, actually, that can be re-traumatizing and damaging and actually make the effects of the trauma worse. So if you're thinking, oh my gosh, like maybe I do have some stuff left over from childhood or my teenage years, I was bullied and I never really addressed it, or all of those things, there's a really good chance that in some way that's affecting your anxiety, burnout, depression, whatever that looks like, and your relationships. And if you don't address it correctly with the therapist or somebody qualified, it's going to come back. Or it's just going to keep coming up, like it comes and it goes and it comes and it goes. So remember, if you're feeling these things, your brain has a purpose. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you, but there is something that's being left unaddressed. So a really good way to start to process some of this is really just being curious about your emotions. When do I feel the most anxious? Is it at work? Is it around my partner? Is it around a certain topic that keeps coming up? Are there certain people that I find myself acting differently around? Is it the in-laws, my own parents, my siblings? Who am I not consistent with like I am with other people? Or who do I feel like I have to put a bit of a facade around? And why is that? Curiosity is where all of this begins. And even in the therapeutic space, that's what we do, is just be curious about this stuff. And so I think it's really important to talk about that. If you see this, you can see how a chemical response like medication isn't always going to be effective because you're not getting to the core issue. So like really driving this, right? Because our thoughts and our beliefs affect our chemicals in our body, cortisol, stress, all of that. So that's what increases cortisol or decreases. So if I wanted to increase your cortisol right now, I would just tell you, hey, did you know that you're half an hour late for that really important appointment? The thought of being late or seeing that the time is half an hour ahead of what you think it was, that is only a thought in your mind. And all of a sudden, your heart rate's up, your breathing's shorter, you feel edgy and on edge. So you can see how thoughts affect your cortisol, the stress chemical in your body. So you need to address the thoughts and the feelings. You need to address the stuff stuck in your nervous system to change that. That's not going to be changed by taking some pill only. So I hope that this episode was really helpful for you and offered you some clarity and just a good analogy to think about what's going off direction for me, what's happening here. And of course, if you've been following along at the time of this recording on Instagram and there's those sorts of things on our email list, we've got the Clarity Collective and Imposter to Professional Mastermind coming out very shortly. And we're so excited for you to be part of this community, even though we had to push the launch date back. Being a leader myself, I understand flexibility, even though it's hard. We've pushed it back. As you can hear, I'm quite nasally now. There's been a lot of personal stuff going on, which I'll share with you very shortly. But we just got to get through this together. But the mastermind is here. So if you want this community, if you want people also on this personal development path, because I think it's important. I don't think it's important. I know that the community aspect of being around people who truly support your highest ambitions, your highest dreams without judgment, because they're on the same road too, really shows you that this isn't crazy or wooey and you're doing the right things. And they've been there with the difficulty setting boundaries and holding the line and having to tell people you can't have them in your life anymore. Everyone has gone through that at some point, and it's really important that we're there for each other and getting professional advice from people around this stuff, as well as the business strategy, which is also part of this mastermind. So business and career for my ladies in corporate as well. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I always love your feedback, so feel free to send me a message. I've been taking a little break off socials, but I will get back to you as soon as I see the message. So thank you again for being here. I love you, beautiful soul. I'm so happy that we've connected and that I'm part of your day today. And I will see you in the next episode of the 4Q podcast. Bye for now.